So you can catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan scratch it. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it. Catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it.
What you know about classic music?
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series. I'm Owen the Birdman Finch, and I'm here with
Chris.
And today, we're doing a random Raw from November 6, 2017. You're probably thinking to yourselves, why would we pick up just a random Raw from November 6, 2017? Well, this is Chris's pick, and UK-wise, Chris didn't really have a lot of options to pick from. Chris had to pick, I think 3 shows before we finally did one. We basically did what we did when you picked NXT TakeOver. I think it was Our Evolution, where that didn't get done for years because just schedules were too busy and all that type of stuff. You had to do it yourself pretty much. I think you were the host, and you and James and Casey helped you out pretty much. And as you've told me before, you thought that retro was just a disaster because you can't be the host of podcasts and all that type of stuff. Nope. I think essentially Casey was the one that ended up hosting it for the most part. Yeah, pretty much. You picked originally NXT TakeOver, not NXT TakeOver because they weren't doing takeovers anymore. It was NXT Roadblock, because we were going to do it for hype for the Great American Bash, but we didn't have the time. Because my allergies kicked the shit out of me, and I was my sleep schedule was off because some nights I would go to bed at 6:30 and never be able to watch it. I mean, I would obviously get up, but it was one of those things where I think that was the week it was hot and the heat makes you tired type of thing. So.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, it does.
And then we were supposed to do SummerSlam 2017 at one point, but the same thing happened. And I think our schedules didn't match up anyways. I think you were busy the go home week of SummerSlam. The one day I think you were available was the day. Also, we had to do WWE Aftershock Extra because that was the week the Cody doc came out. So that was kind of more important than getting SummerSlam 2017 Retro done. And then, I think I was gonna watch the show too, right after dinner. And I made the mistake, and I had Five Guys for dinner, and that put me in a food coma. I was out for 2 hours type of thing.
Oh yeah.
So.
Meats and cheeses will do that to you.
Yeah, I wasn't even feeling tired until I had the Five Guys burger, and I'm like, oh, tired now. I think I got up really early too, and sometimes when I do a big video like that, it just makes me tired as hell because I put my heart and soul into the Cody part of the documentary of the video because I was so hyped up to watch it. And I think I went to bed that night and the night before at 2:30, so it was just yeah. So then we settled for any show in the UK, and I tried to make it happen. Today was the only day you were really available, and today was the only day we could really make it happen because my schedule is going to be different because family leaves here Friday, and I want to spend time with them, help them pack up and all that type of stuff as much as possible, and get the house clean in case surprise visitors show up out of nowhere. I say that like someone's going to invade the house, but whatever. Just got to make it look clean if I get robbed or something.
It's an invasion angle at your house.
It'd be better than the WCW Alliance invasion angle. So, but anyhow, yeah. So we settled. I think it was any AEW pay-per-view or a show that happened in the UK, and you didn't really have a lot of options to pick from because originally, I think you would have picked like SummerSlam 1992 or NXT Takeover London because those shows are big shows that happen in the UK. Unfortunately, they've already been recorded. SummerSlam 92 was out. We did that last year. You missed out on that. And then London, James and I did. That's recorded. That might be out by the time you see this video. I don't know when this video is going out. And then I think would have wanted to do Clash at the Castle, but it hasn't been a year yet, and that's the big rule. I think we would have made exceptions to that because a lot has changed with the company by that time, but I said I had to put my foot down on that and be like, nope, that's not happening. And then, yeah, I don't think you were going to pick an AEW pay-per-view because all the good ones that like you would have liked, I think have been done pretty much already. Double or Nothing and Full Gear. So you weren't going to pick any other. You might have picked another AEW pay-per-view, but you just didn't pick an AEW pay-per-view. And then all the shows WWE-wise that's happened in the UK are TV shows pretty much. They're all Raws, SmackDowns, or main events, or 205s, or Level Up. Well, Level Up's never been in the UK, but I don't think it's ever going there.
I don't think so either.
And yeah, it's all basically like house show type shows. So you had slim pickings of what you were gonna pick, and
Very slim.
So this is where we stumbled across. What made you stumble across this Raw from November 6, 2017?
Well, it was in the UK, obviously.
Yep.
And it has to do with like a little tiny group of 3 important men in the industry known as the Shield, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, you're big into the Shield. And they just reunited. Sort of. We'll get into that later in this show. I say sort of because there's a reason it's a sort of reunion type of thing. Yeah. So that was interesting. I remember because I was at your house because we picked this the day after SummerSlam, and we didn't even know which retro it was because you were thinking it was a different show that happened, but we had to look it up, and you had to like get back to me pretty much to make sure you actually wanted to do this because it wasn't the show that you thought it was. But then you eventually just decided. I actually never even messaged you. I just ended up watching the show and it was kind of like, okay, now we have to do it type of thing. I've already watched the show. I don't have enough time to watch like another show before we do the video type of thing. So this is happening. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with this. So let's just get right into the retro. Let's talk about what the state of professional wrestling was like around this time. Kind of a weird state. I feel like WWE was pretty bad at this time, but I feel like because they were doing the Raw versus SmackDown angle, all storylines like paused, and like this was kind of the first time they really did it, like it went all in with it type of thing. Like I know they did this before in 2016, but I feel like this was the first year they went all in with it. They just had SmackDown invade Raw in the Under Siege segment. That's still a weird segment, by the way, because if you remember, Shane McMahon had been off TV for like a couple weeks at this point. He came back and we didn't know what he was, if he was a face or a heel type of thing. And then because he on SmackDown the next night he was a babyface, but he did this big thing on Raw the night before, and he was meant to be like a heel at that time. So it was really awkward. But basically all storylines were paused. This was kind of the first traditional way they did Survivor Series up until last year, How We Know It, where there would be basically bragging rights, if you think about it. The champions from each show would face off, and then they would do 2 traditional Survivor Series matches, one for the men and one for the women. We'll get into kind of what's come of that, because this was kind of the first time they went all in with it type of thing. And this is when they were still like big into the brand split, so they didn't drop the ball on the brand split. Like anyone that was on SmackDown stayed on SmackDown. Everybody that was on Raw stayed on Raw. So that was cool. But the WWE was in a weird state. They were still going big on the Jinder Mahal experience. I said experience. I meant to say experiment. And believe
Well,
it
it
or
was
not,
an experience.
oh yeah, it was. we've talked about that before. I don't think we need to go into more detail on that. We've mentioned that in Battleground 2017 and Backlash 2017 retros. I'll say this: the good thing about it is the next day it would come to an end because he lost the belt the next day. So the Jinder Mahal experiment would wind down, type of thing, and basically be the failure that it was. Raw was probably the best show other than like NXT to watch at this time. Even though it was
SmackDown wasn't necessarily bad at this time though. SmackDown was actually pretty good.
It was good. I just think I don't have good memories of SmackDown at this time because this is when the Jinder Mahal experiment really affected SmackDown because that was the main event angle. If you remember too, I think SmackDown always had the shitty pay-per-views because Backlash was bad. Yeah. Battleground, don't forget Battleground was bad, and then
but like the pay-per-views weren't all that great, but the actual like stories and stuff besides like Jinder Mahal weren't that bad.
Yeah, I guess not. They weren't really pushing.
Jinder just dragged it down.
Yeah, I feel like too they weren't pushing the superstars that we wanted to be pushed either. Like Kevin Owens even was in the mid card up until like the Shane McMahon feud. Pretty much, they'd finally just turned Sami Zayn heel. And if you remember, they kind of dropped the ball with it a little bit in the beginning, just because, like, if you remember, he has that match with Randy Orton on SmackDown where he gets, like, completely annihilated. Like, he didn't get really much offense in, if you remember. And then they were, like, forcing people into roles that didn't make sense. I think the tag division, ironically enough, was the best thing on SmackDown because they just did the New Day and Usos feud, and that ruled. So, I mean, that classic 5-star Hell in a Cell match, how could you forget about that? So,
classic.
NXT, though, was on fire at this time. I will say that NXT did dip a little bit, not necessarily in quality, but it wasn't as big just because, like, if you remember, there's that period of time, like, after the draft up until maybe, like, the Gargano and Ciampa feud really kicks off, where, like, it was still, like, great takeovers and everything like that, but you could definitely tell, like, you know, the quality was still there, but, like, that... Like, no one really wanted to... Like, it wasn't must-see, really, at this time. Like, you didn't have to watch NXT type of thing. The takeovers were still great, but this was kind of like when NXT went into, like, a little bit of a lull. I still think it's great stuff, though, because
because a lot of the big-name talent were going up to the main roster.
And a lot of the big-name talent that got signed from the Indies weren't quite there yet. Like, UE pretty much had just debuted down there, if you remember. I don't even think they were called UE at this point. I think they were just together. So
no, it was just Cole, O'Reilly, and Fish basically.
Yeah.
That was just what they like. Drew McIntyre had a big run in NXT and got hurt.
Yep.
As champion, that was an incredible run, and then that injury kind of fucked everything up.
What a coincidence with Drew McIntyre! Every time he seems like he gets like a big run, something always comes up. He got injured, and then. He got the pandemic hit when he won the belt, so that's ironic.
Yeah.
How ironic is that? 205 Live was really bad. We'll get into why later in this show. I think we've talked about it before, but Enzo as champion really dragged the product down. So
horrifically bad.
So WWE was in like I would say like if you was like thumbs in the middle at this time. Impact, I think we thought was gonna really die at this time, just because I think. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is around the time where it merged with GFW, and it was meant to become GFW, and I think this is around the time this happens. It might have been a little bit afterwards. Jeff Jarrett like showed up drunk at a AAA show, and he sued the company, and basically they fired him and all that type of stuff, and they had to basically rebrand back. Like, Impact was in a really weird state at this time, just because, like, they had to go back to Impact and, like, basically have to restart. And ironically enough, it ended up kind of working out for them, because it caused Scott D'Amore and Don Callis to become, like, the executive vice presidents and really turn that company around. So, even though it started up bad, in a weird way, if you could say about it, Jeff Jarrett showed up drunk at AAA, ended up benefiting Impact, weirdly enough. So it just took a while, obviously. So Impact was kind of in a weird state at this time. I think this was one of those times we thought Impact was going to have to close because of that, because like they
It was getting close. They were bad.
Yeah. this was kind of like the last time. Like I feel like if Impact didn't bounce back after this time, they were going to be done. And then the Indies were doing really well at this time. ROH, New Japan, and all the things connected to it and stuff, like with partnerships, were doing really well. And it's ironic enough, you're here. It was the Elite pretty much that were turning, and the Bullet Club that were turning those companies around. You know, Cody Rhodes was the ROH champion and stuff, and really got ROH talked about again and got it, noticed globally and all that type of stuff. And then the Elite were doing their thing in New Japan and everything like that. And yeah, this was kind of awesome stuff right here. Like, they were like, I think, was it at this point that they that their shirt was like the #1 shirt at Hot Topic type of thing? Was it around this time?
Yeah, it was around this time. Yeah.
So like, the Indies were kicking ass at this time. Like, except AAA. I think AAA was kind of struggling a little bit just because they had that. I feel like they got some bad press because of the Jeff Jarrett situation, and if you remember, I think it was Sexy Star injuring Rosemary, so that they kind of got some bad press. And then Lucha Underground, I think, was this kind of like when Lucha Underground started to go downhill a little bit? Because I'm pretty sure like it was around this time. Like,
It was like, what, 2017?
yeah.
Yeah. I think this is almost near the end. Yeah, it is, because Ricochet joins WWE in like the spring fall of the next year.
So was this around the time where like Ricochet like basically was out of the Indies for that period? Because didn't they air an episode?
He wasn't allowed to compete on the Indies at that point in time.
Yeah,
because of his contract.
Not just the Indies, anywhere. Like he had to basically sit at home for like what, months? How long until that?
He couldn't get out of his contract.
Yeah.
Because it was a specific contract that he signed with Lucha that like he couldn't do the Indies.
Yeah.
He couldn't. It was basically like a WWE like style contract, to where he was forced to be under this contract, even though it had been taped. So for Ricochet, it was October of 2017 was the final episode it had aired. It was 16 months after that had been taped. So he had been. It had been 16 months from when that season was taped.
That's insane.
And I remember there was rumors swirling around him going to WWE in like 2016.
Oh my gosh.
And he was looking to go there in 2016, but they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't let him out of his contract. It was so stupid.
Yeah, I think that was like
it was January of 2018 when he signed with WWE.
And I think that was the official downfall of Lucha when that happened. I feel like if that didn't happen, Lucha probably still would have died anyways. But I feel like a lot of the people. This is when I don't want to call it a union type of thing, but this is when a ton of talent like sued the company for that reason and all that type of stuff. Like
it was just a shitty run company by the end.
Yeah,
it was not much longer after that they went under.
Because it's not like he was wrestling under the name Ricochet when he's even there and all that type of stuff. So
he's under a fucking mask.
Yeah,
but again, you could tell by the shoulder to pec tat who that was. But
yeah,
he was to show up anywhere. But like, it's just so dumb.
Yeah,
that they wouldn't even like let him do what he wanted to do. I mean, it was like a WWE style contract where it's like if you sign your deal, you can't do anything.
Yeah,
but it's just like, dude, you're a fucking. It's like the company's a fucking indie.
Yeah,
it's a glorified indie promotion, and it's like, you can't do that unless if you're. It doesn't. It's not. You're not a big company.
Yeah.
WWE does it. Okay, fine. AEW does it. Okay, fine. They're New Japan. They're big companies. But like Lucha, like, come on, you're like a glorified indie promotion.
I know. Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense when they have such strict like contract, and you couldn't even And if your contract ended, like Ricochet's did, before the season that you appeared on aired, they didn't let you out of out of your contract no matter what.
Yeah, it's weird.
So in a
Anyhow,
way, it's fucked.
yeah. And then that's basically wrestling as a whole. I would say was like, pretty good at around this time. It's also tough because also wrestling kind of goes on a bit of a lull period around this time, just because like it's right before Thanksgiving, in between, like right before Christmas time, and New Japan does their G1 and all that type of stuff, so that takes up a lot of their time, and then you know the WWE is still the big company, so there's no competition really out there and all that type of stuff. So, but anyhow, that's basically kind of where wrestling was at this time. Let's get into the actual show itself. I only mentioned the date. You can see it right on the video. The commentary team was Corey Graves, Michael Cole, and Booker T. I think we talked about this before because they were in a retro from a year ago. They weren't too bad here, though. I thought they were better on this episode of Raw than the episode of Raw we watched a year ago. You could still definitely tell the difference with Michael Cole when he's under the Vince production versus the Triple H production.
It's insane.
Yeah, and then Corey Graves was pretty decent, and Booker T, he wasn't as bad as he is today. Like, he was still pretty bad, but he's definitely someone that I think you've seen that needs to be micromanaged when he does commentary, like, because he can't say whatever he wants and all that type of stuff. There's still some lines that he says that's just mind-boggling, but I will say, I think your dad won't watch this video most likely, right? Because I'm going to say the story, and I don't want your dad to watch this video and find out that way.
Yeah.
Can I say the story, or do you want me to leave that behind the scenes? Like, will your dad stumble across this video at all, or?
Yeah, I'd leave it out.
Okay, so we're gonna leave that out. I'll just say that there is a reason this Raw is tougher to get through than like other past shows I've watched. So, but that's behind the scenes talk, so we can't talk about it. We had the intro. Basically, they had the old school style intro, which is not the intro today, and then it showed recaps of what happened the week before when The Miz and The Ball and Kane basically murdered Braun Strowman and sent him into the dumpster, and it was when he had his big return the week before and wiped out Curtis Axel and all that type of stuff. Pretty decent recap. Let's just get this rant out of the way now. Boy, did they recap the crap out of stuff on this show. Not as bad, I don't think, as we've seen recently, but I'm pretty sure they show this recap again, not of Braun Strowman returning again later in the show. It's like, what's the point? You showed it in the beginning of the show. You don't need to show it again. And I'm pretty sure they recapped something else on this show. I think they recapped, like, it was something, like, pretty big, too. I think they recapped an episode of 205 Live randomly, which they had shown for, like...
Oh, yeah. They always recap 205 Live.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, they did, like, so many recaps on this show, like, it was just so annoying. Like, I didn't mind them doing it in the beginning, because it's the beginning, it's whatever. But, like, there was no need to recap the Braun Strowman thing again later in the night. It was just unnecessary. What do you think of how many recaps they did on this show? I think I know your take on it, but I'll let you say it anyways.
Too many.
Weirdly enough, not as many, there was some stuff that happened for exclusive-wise. Kathy Kelly previewed the show and talked about all these things that were going to happen. She was in a different location. She was in, like, the UK, since Raw was in the UK. And she did a segment backstage later where she announced that Becky Lynch was going to face James Ellsworth in a match on SmackDown. I think I don't know why they announced it on Raw. That's really weird. Like, but
they gave no fucks. They were like, "Fuck it,
we're announcing it." It's not like that match is gonna bring people in. By the way, Becky Lynch versus, because you forget it's not even the Becky Lynch that we know today. This was still pre-man Becky Lynch. So, I mean, not that she wasn't a draw back then, but it's not
this
like
was straight fire Becky Lynch.
This was straight fire Becky Lynch.
Because her hair was was red. That's the only. And her
Yeah.
gear was like kind of orange.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
don't,
only
I don't,
reason
e-
why.
I don't even remember who wins that, what the result was of that match, and I'm pretty sure I know who wins that match between Becky Lynch and James Ellsworth. I'm pretty sure I know. So
Maybe we don't. Maybe.
maybe not. And yeah, then we had Miz TV. The Miz is there with the Miz Taraj because at the time they were a faction with Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas. Curtis Axel was in a neck brace from when he got attacked by Braun Strowman the week before. I will say the thing that's going to be cool about watching this show, we reviewed this show in real time. Obviously not as it happened because we always did the show at the end of the week when it was I think at this point it was trying to think if it was Massasoit Wrestling Corner at this time, if it would have been Aftershock Corner. I think it was Aftershock Corner that we made the change.
No,
No,
it was Aftershock.
I think yeah, no, because it's Massasoit Wrestling Corner, and there's so there you go.
Was it?
I think it was Massasoit Wrestling Corner, yeah. And or maybe it was Aftershock Corner.
No, it was definitely Aftershock.
Okay,
It was definitely Aftershock Corner.
but yeah, it's kind of nice to go back and watch these shows like after they've happened and all that type of stuff because we know everything that happens now and our perspectives are probably different now. Like I don't know how positive we were or negatively we were back then, but we'll talk about it. So yeah, the Miz at this time is Intercontinental Champion, and yeah, this is when they were doing Raw versus SmackDown. So the main champions would face off, WWE champion versus Universal champion. The mid card champions would face off, so that'd be Intercontinental champion versus United States champion, and then it was the tag champs would face off from both Raw and SmackDown, and then they would do the traditional Survivor Series matches. So I guess we could say in hindsight, I feel like this was the first time they did it that way. I thought this time it was pretty damn successful. In hindsight, though, we can say this didn't really take off, I don't think, very well. Like, yes, it would be good TV, like, when we would watch it in real time and all that type of stuff, but then after Survivor Series would happen, there was no stakes. That was the big mistake they made. They never added any stakes to it. Like, they didn't do, like, if Raw wins, they get to pick someone from SmackDown to join Raw, or vice versa, or they didn't do, like, if Raw wins, they can get, like, an extra match at WrestleMania. Like, there was no stakes, pretty much. It was just bragging rights, pretty much.
It was, yeah.
It was pretty annoying because then what would happen is, if you ever notice, all storylines right before Survivor Series would pause, pretty much. Like, if you remember, like, when Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins were feuding going into 2018 Survivor Series, that feud pretty much had to be put on hold for a bit, so that way Seth could go face, the SmackDown's champion type of thing. Or, like,
Yeah.
I am trying to remember, like, other times where this happened. There was, like, a big blood feud going on. I feel like, too, the best one, I would say, was was 2019, if you remember, when, NXT got involved. That's probably the best one when they did it.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure.
But yeah, this was this. I'm hoping this formula is done and, like, killed forever now, just because, like, it would be so annoying because every storyline would get put on pause. Like, if you remember a big example of that, Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns was given away. A big pay-per-view match that could have been saved was given away just at Survivor Series with no stakes on the line, if you remember, because it was right when Roman turned and right when Drew was red hot. Like, no one could really lose at that time, but they had no choice but to do the match because they were both the champions. And if you remember, the thing that would be kind of annoying at this time is, if you remember, it was the next year when AJ was WWE champion. They would also do title changes to mix it up a little bit. Like, AJ lost his championship, like the go home episode of SmackDown, so they had no time to hype up a new match that happened at, like, Survivor Series.
Well, yeah, it was Brock versus Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, but it wasn't Brock versus Bryan. Like, it was like the go home episode. It was changed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because it was AJ Brock, and they were building up AJ Brock, and then they did the title change.
Yeah.
On very, and that on the Friday before the pay-per-view that was on Sunday at the time.
Yeah, and I feel like too Survivor Series. This is kind of like when it became not really the Big Four anymore because you couldn't,
Oh
you
yeah,
could, you could have. Let's be real. You could have probably like not watched any wrestling from like after whatever pay per view was before Survivor Series until Survivor Series and not miss a damn thing because they would just do the
oh yeah.
brand split thing.
It was definitely 4 of 4.
Yeah. So, um, this was the year I think was like the second best though, just because they did go all in with it. I think what it was nice was, you know, you didn't really know who was going to show up to which brand. I think why you can't do it anymore is because they've given up on the brand split. This is kind of slow when they were big on the brand split, like we talk about. Like, you know, you wouldn't really see anyone from SmackDown go to Raw and anyone from Raw go to SmackDown type of thing. So that's why it was still kind of like a big deal type of thing. And, you know, it's not like they were really building any storylines around this time anyways. So it's like, because if you remember, this is when they did the double, where they did their own brand pay-per-views. So they just wrapped up most of the storylines at, like, Hell in a Cell and TLC and all that type of stuff. But it'll also be weird because then, because around this time, Shane McMahon got turned on by like Sami Zayn and stuff, and they didn't do anything with it for like a month because they had to do this brand split like pay-per-view type of thing. So it was, that's why it was still kind of weird in places type of thing. Like I feel like there was issues with it back then. I think we pointed out, but it's more noticeable now just because of how they've done the formula of like Raw versus like SmackDown now type of thing. Any feud on the brand would have to be put on ice for like basically to do Survivor Series type of thing. So it'd be like the worst continuity wise, booking wise too.
It would be.
Like the wrestling obviously would be good because it's like dream matches you've never seen before type of thing. And this is where we could just talk about how it gets weird type of thing because this is when it gets weird. So The Miz was the Intercontinental Champion. Baron Corbin, if you remember, was the United States Champion at this time. And this is when Corbin was like really bad at this time. His stock had fallen flat at this time. But Baron Corbin had been talking shit about The Miz on Twitter. Because it was Twitter back then. Let's just get that career retrospective out of the way. Twitter's not Twitter anymore. It's X now. It's been bought out by a new person and he changed the name. There you go. There's that career retrospective right there. How weird is it that we have to do a career retrospective on Twitter? That's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Miz had been talking shit about the Baron Corbin had been talking shit about the Miz, and the Miz says he wants to talk about Baron Corbin, and the Miz talks about how he busted his ass for years in this company for 15 years, and he said that he could take it if he talked shit about his wife because she can defend herself, but what he can't stand is when he talks shit about my unborn daughter, because at the time Maurice was pregnant at the time. So I think he said something like he's gonna call his unborn child would call Baron Corbin daddy. So he kind of cuts his passionate promo talking about how he sacrificed his life in the business. He talked about how he had to work from the bottom up while Baron Corbin went and did the Indies, which the Miz got that fact wrong actually. I don't think Corbin was ever in the Indies. And then he said he talked about how he worked from NXT and got transitioned to SmackDown. And Miz talked about how he had to evolve into the business without having to been in any of that, and became the star that he is today, a WrestleMania main eventer. And talked about how Baron Corbin just has the U.S. title and has it elevated, and the Miz has made the Intercontinental Championship talked about championship. So he got a really good promo on Corbin here and said that he's going to kick his ass in Survivor Series. And you would think it's great stuff. The Miz cut a babyface promo here, and then he just says, "Okay, now let's get to Miz TV," and then he starts acting like a heel right after. It'd be so. That's why the Survivor Series was so weird. Like Miz was because the Miz they clearly wanted to be the babyface in the Corbin match, but then he would just go back to a heel. That's why Survivor Series was so weird at this time. But before we break down the actual Miz TV, what did you think of that? Like the Miz went babyface, and then he just went right back into a heel, if you remember.
That was bizarre.
Yeah, and this happened a lot.
What? Wait a minute. He just got this big face promo, and it's like, why is he a heel now? That makes no sense.
Yeah. So, the Miz brings out Kurt Angle as his guest for Miz TV. Kurt Angle at the time was the Raw general manager. And I'm not going to say that anything behind the scenes more because the Miz is about to say it. So, the Miz talked about how him and Kurt Angle haven't gotten along recently. He talks about, how they've had, how they had been feuding back and forth. Kurt Angle threw a jab at The Miz, reminding him that he tapped him out at TLC, which was awesome. I thought that was hilarious. And The Miz shows footage of, when Braun Strowman was brought back and all that type of stuff, and how he had to defend his title. Again, this was essentially used to recap shit that didn't need to be recapped, if you think about it, because they just show clips of it and all that type of stuff. And The Miz shows footage of how when SmackDown invaded Raw, like basically Stephanie McMahon put his job on the line, and that's why he is going to be the team captain at Survivor Series, and he has to basically come out with a home run or his job's on the line. And Kurt Angle talks about how, he believes in Raw. He talks about how Raw is the A show and SmackDown's the B show. He says that Raw is not going to lose because they're about to enter the 25th anniversary. He says that they have the best roster, the best talent, and the best fans, which is weird because it's the same fans. It's not like the fans change. Like it's not like it's WCW versus Raw and like the Monday Night Wars type of thing. Like I bet you, because I think SmackDown was in the UK the next night. When SmackDown went there, the same people went to SmackDown that went to Raw. So it was weird that he said that. And they said that they have to beat SmackDown at Survivor Series. And The Miz talked about how he thinks there's a conspiracy going on against him with Kurt Angle because of all the stuff that he's had to go through. And he says that he finds it fitting that, coincidentally, the week that Braun Strowman comes back, he finds out that Braun Strowman was going to be on the Raw team at Survivor Series. And Kurt Angle said that just happened to be a coincidence. That's not what happened, but he said that he did make a promise to Braun Strowman and says that Braun Strowman said he'd join the team if he could have a match with The Miz tonight. And yeah, The Miz is begging to try to have this match not take place, but he's not very successful, and Kurt Angle just leaves, and that's the end of the segment. I like this segment here. I thought Kurt Angle and The Miz cut really good promos back and forth on each other. I do like that there's that moment where like The Miz is talking down Kurt Angle, and the second that Kurt Angle gets pissed, The Miz is begging for mercy type of thing, and the second that he finds out he's gonna face Braun Strowman, he's on his knees begging for the match not to take place. I really like this a lot. So overall, what did you think of this opening segment here? I liked it. I thought it was good.
I thought it was really good. Again, it's a good promo. It's a good promo back and forth because they were in a feud at the time.
They were. And yeah, no career retrospectives. There's only one person we're doing a career retrospective for. Let's just get that out of the way right now. But yeah, I like this. I do think we should talk about this. This is when Kurt Angle's GM is still working at the time. If you do watch Kurt Angle, I think the thing that he struggled with being the GM is he had to do the scripted promos, and he couldn't do the scripted promos. If you remember, he would mess up a line, I think, every week when he was watching.
Oh, yeah. It's not very good. Scripted promo.
They should have, but Vince was big into that at that time, so that's why he had to do the scripted promos type of thing. And, it's kind of weird for a transition for Kurt Angle, because when he left the company, I don't think there was really scripted promos as much as there was when he came back type of thing. So, I think Kurt Angle needed to have a good night here, because if you remember, he just got his ass chewed out the week before by Stephanie McMahon, and it made him look really bad, so that's why I'm kind of glad they made up for it with this time. There was one more thing that was brought up, because it ties into the show, where The Miz accused Kurt Angle, if you remember, of Kane taking out Daniel Bryan the week before, and Kurt Angle had to say, that was, Raw had nothing to do with that type of thing. And The Miz also mentioned that how Raw hasn't done anything pretty much when SmackDown invaded. I do remember this. That was a big rant you had at the time, that Raw was basically, nothing would happen on SmackDown pretty much. Raw didn't do anything until, the go-home week of SmackDown.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of feel about that? Because now, that was a big rant you had at the time, but now that you've seen how it played out, are you, okay with it now, or do you still kind of have, an issue with it type of thing?
Oh, I was pissed.
So how do you feel about it now that you've seen how it played out?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, because you got a good thing out of it. So yeah, so this segment was a thumbs up. It was good stuff. Then we had a Vince Russo special here. It was a guitar on a pole match. It was Elias versus Jason Jordan. The reason this match was happening was because they started feuding around TLC time. I'm trying to remember exactly how the feud started. Didn't Elias come out to try to do his concert like 3 times at TLC, and Jason Jordan kept interrupting it or something? It was something.
He did.
And then they had like, a match at TLC, and like I think Jordan won the match, and then they had a match the next night, 2 weeks, where Elias got himself DQ by hitting him. He was supposed to hit him off the head with guitar, but it wasn't the head; it was like the shoulder area, and then Jason Jordan broke his guitar the week before. But yeah, a Vince Russo special here. But this time it was different because the way to win the match was you had to remember this. You had to retrieve the guitar, and the person that retrieves the guitar then has to use it on their opponent. Remember that thing because that ties into the finish. But yeah. It's an item on a pole match, so it's gonna suck regardless. But Elias comes out. This is when Elias was still relatively over, as you remember. Like Vince was big on Elias. But if you notice, because we never asked about him, Elias hasn't been on TV recently, and that's because I don't think he's over anymore. That's why we haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
So he does like at his concerts. He talks about like how Jason Jordan destroyed one of his Cherished guitars. Basically, just take this Elias promo and just take it to everywhere else. He does the sports heat, and then he, except this time he doesn't have his guitar because it's hanging up on the pole. So he says that he's gonna do an a cappella song, and surprise, surprise, he gets interrupted as he always did. I don't think he ever not got interrupted. I think there was one time maybe he did get interrupted, but like, didn't when he go face to it with the opposite, he would interrupt. He would be the one that interrupts somebody. So it was always it was hilarious. And if you remember, I still laugh at it every time I hear it. Jason Jordan at the time was Kurt Angle's son, and he had like basically like a generic version of Kurt Angle's like TNA like theme song type of thing. Like it's hilarious if you listen to it.
Oh, you mean Dad Kurt?
Yeah. And do you remember, like, the lyrics of the song was so weird? Like, he's like, I'm the greatest of all time. It's so fucking awful. Like,
he's the next generation of great.
Oh, yeah. This is kind of like when they were, this is kind of like when, too, they were, like, still kind of, like, ignoring the fact that, they had to turn the guy heel. I think they kind of wised up to it, like, later on. Until, like, but obviously it was too late because then he got injured. So by the time they wise up to it, it was kind of too little too late. But you can't really fault the company on that one type of thing. So, but yeah, we have the match. Jason Jordan and Elias grapple each other for a bit. They try to go for the guitar bits, but it doesn't. It's not very successful. Elias throws him into the barricade. During the match, Michael Cole and Booker T throw shade at Michael Cole and Corey Graves throw shade at Booker T, mentioning that he was in an item on a pole match before, the 49ers match, and Booker T was just like, yeah, I'd rather not talk about that. So he quickly put an end to that. You can't blame him for not wanting to talk about it, though. And eventually, Elias gets the guitar. So he can now use the guitar. He has to hit Jason Jordan with it. So they try to hit each other with the guitar. And eventually Jason Jordan gets the guitar, and he just cracks Elias over the back with the guitar and wins the match. But this doesn't make any sense, because Jason Jordan didn't get the guitar, so he should have been able to use the guitar. They made it pretty clear in the match that if you get the guitar, you can use the guitar, but Jason Jordan never got the guitar, so he couldn't. I think they realized, like, shit, wait, Jason Jordan can't win now, so they just threw a rule in there that, like, okay, I guess Jason, because they clearly wanted Jordan to win, so.
Oh, yeah.
What they should have done is they should have done, not that I'm a fan of item on a pole matches anyways, like, each of them had to get a separate guitar type of thing, like, Jason Jordan had to get one and Elias had to get one type of thing, but
he would have been the next generation of great.
Yeah, so this match I give like a 1 star. It wasn't good. Item on a pole matches suck. And yeah, this was just terrible. What did you think?
It sucked. It wasn't good. It's not a good match. Item on a pole matches suck. and it's just not good. And they did a bad job of explaining it too.
Yeah, and I don't know if the commentators even knew what the rules were at this match, so you can't really blame them probably. So, and yeah, they would keep doing these matches though. If you notice, they kept doing them too. Like, and the rules and the rules got more and more complicated as it went on. Because this was pre-Symphony of Destruction type matches, and then they just started doing those type of things. So, I like to Elias. This is his gimmick, and he can't even win his own fucking gimmick match. Like what a loser! What a loser he is. He can't even win his own gimmick match. So
He was a fucking big time fucking loser at this time.
yeah.
Big time fucking loser. Pathetic loser.
And we've done career retrospective on both guys, so we don't need to do it again. Asuka has a vignette. Was this her first match on Raw? Or had she been? Because I know she debuted relatively soon, but I'm pretty sure this was like a first match on Raw type of thing. Or,
I think it was, or it was coming up soon.
Yeah. Then we had Kurt Angle backstage, and the Bar come up, and they're upset that all these people have been given title opportunities, and they think that Kurt Angle is showing favoritism. So Kurt Angle's like, well, they've been stepping up and defending SmackDown, and he tells them that he didn't see them like necessarily stepping up when SmackDown invaded, and they just laugh at him and they say, well, they don't need to step up. And they're basically trying to kiss up to Kurt Angle. And Kurt Angle just says, I don't want you guys to kiss up. If you want an opportunity, just ask me. So eventually they do just ask him. And Kurt Angle says that tonight in the main event, I mean, he doesn't say it's the main event, but, it becomes the main event. He is going to give them one last chance to win the Raw Tag Team titles. But if they don't win, they're out of Survivor Series. So that's not good. And yeah, this was at the time, if you remember, where Cesaro was right after he had the teeth injury, where was right after the No Mercy match with Seth, where his teeth, and he just recovered from surgery and everything like that, and he couldn't talk at this time, and Vince knew that. I think we talked about this before. So the big joke is he would have Cesaro talk, and Cesaro legit could not talk at this time. I know a lot of people say that anyways about Cesaro, but he legit could not talk. So it made this segment kind of funny but hard to watch at the same time. But I like this segment here. What did you think of it?
That's a good segment. It's basically, like you said, it sets up the main event for the night, even though they didn't explicitly say it was the main event. Yeah, it was a good segment.
And then Kurt Angle too was also looking at his phone. This was big when he was looking at his phone a lot backstage, and he was trying to get he's trying to get in contact with Daniel Bryan to kind of try to explain to him that he wasn't the one that issued the attack by Kane on Daniel Bryan. So there you go. What do you think of that little tidbit right there? It was pretty funny because he's so concerned and stuff like that.
I liked it. Yeah, it was a good segment. I liked it.
Then we had Asuka versus Stacey Coates. You talked to me about this a few days ago. Stacey Coates is now known as Isla Dawn. But back then, she was Stacey Coates. I think she just started in the business, and this was an enhancement talent to put over Asuka. The commentators were just laughing their ass off that Stacey Coates accepted this match. They were just basically saying that she should have just walked off and just not even taken the match type of thing, but that didn't happen. Stacey Coates slaps Asuka in the face, and Asuka just destroys her. She eventually hits a glam slam bomb basically move, and then turned it into the Asuka lock, and Stacey Coates taps out. Asuka wins. That was fine. Then Alicia Fox, who was the captain of Team One because she won it in a qualifying match, picks Asuka to be on her team for Survivor Series. At the time, the women's team was starting to take shape at this time. It was Asuka and Nia Jax. So I think we know who the best team is. Weirdly enough, for some strange reason, they made Alicia Fox the team captain. But overall, I thought this was enjoyable. It got over Asuka pretty big. I could have done without the Alicia Fox segment, but this was 2 stars. A nice little squash right here. What did you think?
That's a squash to get asked over. Yeah, wasn't bad. Good. Too bad. Whatever happened to Stacey Coates though?
I'll tell you. So Stacey Coates did her thing in the Indies for what, probably like a year. Um, then I think she was part of the Mae Young Classic in 2018 as what we know as now as Isla Dawn, and then I don't think she made it very far in the tournament, from my knowledge. I think she got out like in the first round, and then she got signed to WWE in 2018 as part of the NXT UK brand, which we'll talk about that later. Um, and then she didn't do really all that much in the NXT UK division. I think she was mainly enhancement talent in the beginning, and then she turned heel like after during the pandemic. I wasn't watching NXT UK all that much when she turned heel, but she did turn heel. She feuded with Mako Satomura for the belt. I think that was like one of the last big feuds for the women's title of NXT UK before they shut the brand down. And then she was out of action for a bit. She showed back up and feuded with Kaylee Ray. And eventually they formed a tag team that didn't really make much sense. The tag team ended up working out just because they're friends in real life, but it was essentially Shawn Michaels booking where he did the reverse thing, where like he had them feud first and then put them as a tag team, which, was really weird. That's not really how you form a tag team type of thing. Because it's one of those things. I think we talked about this before, as you remember. It's not like Kaylee Ray like lost and then became manipulated. She beat her in the feud, and then like all of a sudden like she was like manipulated by Isla Dawn. Like how do you get manipulated by someone that like beat in a feud type of thing? Like
Yeah,
it wouldn't really make sense. But with Shawn Michaels booking, nothing makes sense. I feel like we're never gonna get through a video without Bayley and Shawn Michaels booking. It always comes up somehow. Then they won the tag team titles. Was it Stand and Deliver over Mania weekend? I believe that's when they won them. The NXT Women's Tag Team titles. They got drafted to SmackDown. They didn't do that much. They lost the belts quickly to Wanda and Shayna, and then they unified them. The NXT Women's Tag Team titles got put on ice. They were gone forever. And then, they haven't done anything. We haven't seen them at all since then. So I don't know what's going on there. But that's the career retrospective of good old Stacey Coates. Anything you want to say about the career retrospective of Stacey Coates that I didn't say?
yeah. They haven't done anything recently, so
There you go. Which is kind of what you think about has become a big staple of the draftees that got called up from NXT. They haven't done all that much. So then we had Titus Worldwide get interviewed. A week before this, Apollo Crews had a match with Samoa Joe, where Joe beat him, and then afterwards Joe choked out Titus O'Neil. So it was setting up a match between Titus O'Neil and Samoa Joe this week. I believe your backstage interviewers for this show were Renee Young, Charlie Caruso, and Mike Rome. So they had 3 backstage interviewers. I think that's a bit too much. I don't think you need 3 backstage interviewers. I think you could have just done like 2. Like Renee Young was on could have just been the SmackDown one, because I just don't get why they did that. But what did you think of him having 3 backstage interviewers? Did you think that was too much, or did you think that was just enough?
one too many.
Who would you have done without on this one?
All of them.
Every single one of them, just goodbye. They just interview
Every one of
themselves.
them.
But I believe it's Charlie Caruso that does the interview here. Charlie Caruso asked Titus O'Neil, like, I bet that didn't feel very well, and I bet it felt like a dim when you got beat down by Samoa Joe, and just said, we never feel bad. We always like to party and have a good time, but now we have to get serious, and we have to take out Samoa Joe and put an end to that and get the Titus brand going at this time. If you remember, too, this is when, like, Apollo Crews had just joined up. They just started kind of forming this Titus brand thing. If you remember, originally it was meant to be a heel gimmick, but I think it got so over that they turned the babyface out of it, which was odd. So, decent backstage interview segment by Titus O'Neil. I thought it was good stuff. What did you think?
Yeah, good stuff.
Then we were supposed to have Titus O'Neil with Apollo Crews ringside versus Samoa Joe. The match doesn't happen, though. Samoa Joe attacks them both from behind. He throws Apollo Crews off the stage and then chokes out Titus O'Neil on the floor. And he gets into the ring and says that that's going to be a common occurrence where I just come out and wipe everybody out. And he said that there's nobody backstage that can take me out. And then he basically calls an open challenge without calling an open challenge. He doesn't really call it for an open challenge. Finn Balor just comes out and it just leads to a match, which was odd. And guess what? He wasn't 8:15. He was a half hour into the show. So he was 8:30. He was 8:30. Actually, he was an hour into the show. So he was he was the 9 o'clock hour at this time. He wasn't 8:15. So, if you remember, this was probably the worst state of Finn Balor's career, because this was right after that terrible Sister Abigail feud, and right after he got jobbed out by Kane, like legit right afterwards. So yeah, this was not a good time to be a Finn Balor fan. Do you remember there was a big debate on the show with, ironically enough, it was this has never happened before. It doesn't happen very often. It was like with us, John, and James, where we were saying that Kane squashed Finn Balor because he pretty much did. Like, Finn got no offense in, if you remember, in that match. And it was James. James was the one that defended the match, ironically enough, which is weird because it wouldn't happen that way. Usually, you would be the one that would have defended it. Even you are like, yeah, no, Kane squashed Finn Balor here. It was it's quite interesting. But yeah, going through the match, they start the match. They kind of start chain grappling each other and all that type of stuff. And Finn Balor just goes at Samoa Joe. He just starts really taking him out. He hits him with a really good drop kick. Samoa Joe takes his head off with a clothesline. He dominates Finn Balor for a few minutes, throws him shoulder first into the post. And then eventually Joe goes to charge at him. He goes shoulder first into the post, and Finn Balor starts taking him out. He hits a penalty kick from the apron, and he actually hits a double stomp from the apron onto the floor, which was cool. It goes to break, and Finn Balor hits the drop kick, the Wushu drop kick into the corner, and he goes for a double stomp, but Samoa Joe moves out of the way, and Joe hits the senton, and he starts dominating Finn Balor. He hits a Uranagi onto him. He locks him into an STF. Finn Balor hits a penalty kick. He hits a flip dive on the outside, and Joe doesn't necessarily stick the landing on Joe. If you always remember, they would do this spot, and he never stuck the landing all that much on Samoa Joe.
He never did.
And then he hits a slim blade onto him. Eventually, Joe hits a Uranagi out of the corner. He goes for the Muscle Buster, and this is at the time where he would never hit the Muscle Buster again in WWE on the main roster because of the Tyson Kidd injury. So they would always tease it, but he never hit it. And then he locks him in the clear foot clutch. The rear naked choke, but Finn turns it into a double stomp. Coquina clutch. He turns it into a double stomp, and then eventually they start fighting ringside. Samoa Joe throws him across the stage, and the ref, it's a double count out, and it leads to a brawl. And Kurt Angle says, officials break it up, and Kurt Angle says that this is the type of passion that he wants to have with his people, on Monday Night Raw. So, now he picks them both to be on his team, and now they're on his team type of thing. And then afterwards, the fight continues, and Finn Balor hits like a dive off of the stage onto Joe, and that was it. I liked this match. I thought the match was great. I'll give it like 4 stars. I didn't mind the finish too much. I thought, it protected both of them. And, it wasn't, at least this wasn't one of those finishes where, like, because the thing I hate is when they do this type of finish and then they have one of the guys just stand tall anyways. That's like the worst finish I think that they do, just because. Which we're gonna get into that later, so I'll save that rant. But nobody really stood tall. Like, yes, Finn Balor does wipe out Joe on the stage, but they both, if you think about it, they were both laid out from that, so it's not like really anyone gained an advantage here.
No one did.
So I was okay with the double count out type of thing. This was the first long match of the night too, so I liked that. I think this match worked just because, like, It was in the UK. I don't think it was the same venue, but I think it was like the same area where they had the match at Takeover a few years before. And Finn Balor was really over here because he's like he's not from the UK, but he's from like the Ireland like area type of thing. So like he's close enough where like he was like the hometown favorite type of thing. So I enjoyed this, and I like that. This was kind of like where it kind of worked, where like they had this heated match, they hate each other, but now they have to like use this to work together to put their differences aside for Survivor Series type of thing. So I like this. I give the match 4 stars. What did you think?
I think this match is very good. The double count-out finish doesn't hurt it. But yeah, I liked it.
Then the Miz Taraj is backstage, and Bo Dallas is basically doing his Bo Eve gimmick here, where he's trying to hype up the Miz to go face Braun Strowman. But he's kind of like putting him down a little bit, saying like that Braun Strowman could take him out type of thing. So it's kind of funny here. And Curtis Axel comes up with this idea like, let's just leave, let's just get out of here type of thing. The Miz kind of looks at him, and even though he's afraid, he doesn't want to leave. And I think the reason that they don't say this reason, but if you remember, like the Miz tried to do this the week before, and Kurt Angle wouldn't let him leave. So I think it made sense that he didn't leave. He didn't just try to leave. So Curtis Axel, says, I guess Kurt Angle and Curtis Axel look alike now. So Curtis Axel says, okay, you know what? If you have a plan, we'll do the plan. And yeah, the Miz is just all concerned. So I like this. I thought this was a good segment here. I liked it that it got over how scared the Miz was. So what do you think of this?
I liked it a lot.
Then Kurt Angle's backstage. Jason Jordan comes up, and at first he leaves a voicemail to Daniel Bryan to try to tell him that to call him and just wants to make sure he's doing well, and he lets him know that he had nothing to do with the attack by Kane. And
Again.
Jason Jordan comes up, and he gets booed right when you see him too, like right when he comes on screen. And
Dad Kurt.
Kurt Angle, says that he had a nice match out there and all that type of stuff. And Kurt Angle says that, he has that fire that he had. And he talks about how he had all these performances. And yes, you're not winning, but you're learning something here. And he picks him as his final member to be on Team Raw. And Jason Jordan's happy about the opportunity. And that was basically the segment here. I thought the segment was good. I think it did what it needed to do. And obviously nothing comes of this. Because I think it was, the next week where Jason Jordan got taken out and Triple H took his place. I think it was the next week where that happened. So
Triple H just straight up pedigreed him.
Yeah. So what do you think of this? I like this.
I liked it. I did too. Nice father, son, Kurt, dad moment.
Booker T, by the way, this was at the time where let's also talk about the weird commentary, because we should talk about how weird the commentary was at this time. Booker T was not Jason. If you remember, there'd be people, because this is like his Fave 5. He would shit on Jason Jordan on commentary. He was meant to be the babyface too, because he gets all these opportunities because he's Kurt Angle's son. And he was not happy that Kurt Angle picked Jason Jordan as his final guy because of family. And Michael Cole had to defend it by saying if you want to go into a fight, don't you want your family there? And he's like, yeah, but he's not. He was he's not ready for this opportunity. He was not happy about this. And Corey Graves had to be He was the one that had to be the babyface here, and he had to talk, put it over type of thing. It was hilarious. I thought it was awesome. And if you remember later on, it was earlier in the show actually, during the Elias match. If you remember, Michael Cole would always defend Elias, go into heel Michael Cole mode, and Corey Graves hated Elias. It was so ass backwards sometimes. What did you think of how they did that type of thing?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's bizarre commentary.
Later in the show, they mentioned too, that Booker T and Michael Cole were the only ones commentating, rooting for Raw in the Survivor Series team. They're this is our team type of thing, because Corey Graves was, on both shows at this time, so it didn't really affect him all that much. So they kind of throw a shade a lot of that, this is our team, it's not Corey Graves' team type of thing.
No, it's not. It's our team. Fuck Corey Graves.
It's hilarious because this is a little bit of a career retrospective. If you remember at Survivor Series, it's the opposite. Booker T forgets what fucking brand he's on, so he's if you remember, I think Booker T does it a couple times on this show too, where he forgets what brand he's on. So he's You know,
he forgets that Brandy's on all the time.
it's it's hilarious. Um, Next, Bailey and Sasha Banks get interviewed. Um, Bailey had tape on her shoulder because she had just come back from the shoulder injury at this time. Um, I don't think she had like fully recovered from it. I think she had like because she was gone for what like a month, and then she came back like around No Mercy time. So
Yeah.
maybe a couple months then she was gone because that would have been August. So Mike Rome interviews them. They talk about how they want to represent Raw at Survivor Series, just because they've been standard bearers of Raw. But if Alicia Fox won't pick them, then they're too blind to see that, and they're going to use this tag match to prove it. This was not a good promo, really. This is kind of like when Bailey and Sasha Banks were not connected anymore as faces. Bailey, because they killed her face run gimmick on the main roster, and Sasha, they always try to make Sasha a face, and it never works because she's not naturally a baby face. She's a heel. Because John Tuddy said it best, in real life she's a bitch, and it doesn't. So if you're a bitch in real life, you're not going to be able to pretend to be a baby face on screen. So, and I think we were all thinking at the time that we were gonna get a match between Bailey and Sasha Banks, and we did get it. It just didn't happen for years. If you remember, this was like when they were trying to do this tag team run. It just wasn't translated at all. So, what did you think of this? I thought this segment was not very good.
Yeah, not good.
It really a big logical. I think we talked about like only Alicia Fox could pick because only the team captains could pick who they wanted on their team. Like I think we didn't mention this at the time because we didn't. This Survivor Series was like fairly new concept. Like Kurt Angle's the Raw GM. Why didn't he just be like, nope, they're gonna be on your team type of thing? Like that doesn't make sense. Like,
to them it doesn't. To us it doesn't. To them it did.
yeah. Then we had a tag match. It was Nia Jax and Alicia Fox versus Bailey and Sasha Banks. Bailey was really over here because this is in the UK. This is when they started the typical chant you hear from Bailey in the UK now. And I think this meant a lot to Bailey at the time because we didn't talk. I don't think we mentioned it, but if you remember, this was when Bailey was being like booed out of the building in places because they dropped the one on a face run gimmick so bad. So like, I think Bailey was taken aback that she was still over in the UK type of thing. Like it was really cool stuff.
Yeah.
The faces dominate the beginning portions of this matchup, and then eventually the heels get the heat on Bailey. They just beat the crap out of her, destroy her, and then eventually Sasha gets the hot tag, and eventually she makes Alicia Fox tap out to the bank statement. And Alicia Fox, this forces her pretty much to have to pick Sasha Banks to be on her team because this happened. She's not happy about it though, but she does. But she doesn't pick Bailey. Bailey's left off the team. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember how. I know Bailey gets on the team somehow. I remember that happens like the next week. I don't remember how it happens, but I do remember that happens. Overall, I thought this was going to give the match like 3 stars. I think they should have called an audible and had Bailey get the win and had to be on the team because of how over she was. And like she was never going to get up until like her heel run and stuff. She was never going to get this over again. So I think they should have called an audible and had Bailey be the one that actually joined the team because it would have meant a lot more here than what had happened the next week. But what did you think of this? I thought this was good stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was pretty good.
Do you think they should have called the audible and had like Bailey be the one to join the team instead and have Sasha do it the next week, or do you think what they did was fine?
Yeah, I feel like it could have gone that way.
Yeah.
To where Bailey was introduced first.
Then we had the next match. It's The Miz with Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas ringside versus Braun Strowman. Not much of a match here. Braun Strowman just destroys The Miz. The whole match, really. I don't think The Miz really gets a lick of offense in. He throws him around. He throws him halfway across the ring at one point. He throws him into the barricade. He destroys Bo Dallas. He hits his vicious right hand on Bo Dallas. Like, you could hear this right hand. It was so vicious. And he goes up to Curtis Axel, and Curtis Axel's trying to talk him down because he's like got a neck brace. But not Bo Dallas. Braun Strowman just launches him anyways. Um, and then he launches the Miz over the top rope onto the rest of the Miz Tourage, and Kane comes out and he has a face off. If you remember too, I feel like I failed to bring this up. This is when WWE did budget cuts and there was no pyro anymore for any shows. Like the shows would just start now. I think the only time they did pyro was like WrestleMania and like the Saudi shows because that became a thing later
Yeah.
on. When did they bring pyro back full time? I think it was like late 2018, maybe early 2019. I feel like.
Yeah. It was around there.
If you remember, so that would make some Kane's entrance awkward because he didn't have the flames anymore. So like he'd just come out now type of thing. And if you remember, they remixed his theme music at this time. Like it was really bad at this time. Like they added this weird remix to it that wasn't good. Now correct me if I'm wrong, because Kane had just came back. They were starting the Braun Strowman feud. He wasn't mayor yet, but he was like running for mayor at this time. So.
Yeah, not yet.
And yeah, Kane and Braun Strowman brawl, which causes the disqualification because Kane hits Braun Strowman. And Braun Strowman lays out Kane with a power slam, clotheslines him out of the ring, which sends Kane in shock. And this sends Braun in shock because he doesn't take much damage from when Kane, when he clotheslines Kane over the top. And the Miz and Bo Dallas attack Braun from behind. This doesn't work. Braun beats him up and he lays out Miz with a running power slam. So this is where I can rant about the DQ finish. I get you wanted to protect both guys because obviously they weren't going to have Braun lose. Because if you remember, he just turned babyface and he was really red hot at this time. So obviously he wasn't going to lose. The Miz, they didn't want to lose because he was the IC champion and he was probably, if you think about it, he was probably the top heel on Raw if you really think about it because it was really... no top. Well, Brock was, but he wasn't on TV every week. Like full time, Miz was the top heel on Raw, if you think about it. And then, he was the IC champion. But this is where I do the rant. If you were just gonna have Braun stand tall, anyways, why not just have him win the match? You still could have done the Kane brawl. You could have just had Braun pin the Miz with the running power slam and still did the brawl with Kane. Like I don't think it was gonna hurt the match at all. I just don't get why wrestling does this sometimes, where they try to do a 50-50 bookie. They try to do a finish like this that protects both guys, but, the guy that stands tall isn't the winner anyways. Like, if you're going to have a guy stand tall, he should just win the match anyways. Like, it doesn't make sense. They did this recently at, what was it, the Great American Bash, where they did the same finish, and it was the exact same thing. So, I give the match 3 stars. I think it's hurt by, the results. What did you think?
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just really weird. Braun should have just won straight up.
Yeah.
Made him look dumb. But yeah, it's just odd.
Then we have probably your least favorite segment of the show. Enzo Amore comes out to cut a promo. And he comes out, he does his catchphrase. My name's Enzo Amore, I'm a certified stud and a bona fide junior, can't teach that. Obviously, it's changed. And then he was still actually relatively over, actually. I think we talked about this at the time. It's really interesting because he was a big heel at this time. This was around the time where he was not liking him. He was not very well liked. I almost said he's not liking himself in the locker room. That'd be weird. But he was not. He was not very well liked in the locker room. I think this is right after Roman Reigns threw him off the bus, type of thing. Like it was getting out pretty much that like nobody liked him in the locker room, and he was very hot-headed and not very he was being basically a douche backstage and all that type of stuff. I know this didn't become known yet, but I think this would have been around the time where, didn't he have, where someone came out that, he had, basically a black, not a Black Wednesday, what did they call it, in the pandemic? Basically, it came out that, he had sex with, a 19-year-old or something. That big story, basically the story that caused him to lose the cruiserweight Championship, and like they rebranded the division and all that type of stuff. I think that, I think it came out in January, but I think they said it was around, was it like around this time? Apparently, it was going on type of thing, and type of, and all that stuff.
In January, yeah.
But I think it was going on around. I think it was going on around this time. And yeah, yeah. How did WWE react though with Enzo? You know, not being very well liked in the locker room. I mean, you can't really fault Enzo on this one. They put him on another show on Tuesday nights where he was going to have to be backstage at 2 different locker rooms. So, you know, what a great idea by Vince right there. You know, this guy's not very well liked in your locker room. Let's just put him on 2 shows at once, so he's got to go to 2 places.
Might as well.
You can't really blame Enzo. I mean, you can blame Enzo for being a douche, but imagine, like, someone's a douche backstage in your locker room and just putting them on the road for 2 days a week. It's a great strategy right there. And
Fantastic.
yeah, he did. Nobody, you know, he destroyed the cruiserweight division. Up until like it had to get saved. Like the cruiserweight division always was tough, but I feel like it was starting to. But I feel like it was starting to kind of get up there because Neville tried to really win the prestige and with the cruiserweight championship and everything like that. And then Enzo won the belts, and shortly after that, Neville walks out, which we covered that retro actually, and weirdly enough, Enzo could have worked in the cruiserweight division. I think he was just so annoying at this time. That's why it didn't work. Like someone coming into the cruiserweight division and not wrestling could have been a cool gimmick. It's just that it just happened to be Enzo, so that's why it wasn't working. And again, I think the cruiserweight division was just struggling at this time. Like, so that's why it really wasn't working. And then I'm trying to think what else was going on with Enzo at this time. Yeah, nobody liked him. It'd be weird because then on 205 Live, if you remember, remember the Zoe train was formed, but it'd be different on Raw. Like no one in the division liked him on Raw, but on 205 Live, it was completely different. Like, I feel like WWE screwed this up. Like, he should have had a faction. Everyone in the division should have like hated him, type of thing. Like, it didn't really make sense that all of a sudden like everyone started liking him, type of thing. Like,
it's so weird because they beat his ass, and then the next week, the same people kicking his ass joined him.
Yeah, it didn't really make sense. It was kind of like one of those things, like Vince thinks because you're a heel, heels have to like heels type of thing, which it doesn't know. I feel like we've seen in. I know you crap on him. We've seen in AEW and in Triple H's WWE that doesn't have to be the case. Just because you're a heel, you have to be friends type of thing. Just because you're a face, you have to be friends. I feel like Vince never understood that. Like, it isn't. Basically, I would say like the entire time he's ran a wrestling business type of thing. Like, he thinks that faces always have to get along. He thinks that heels always get along. Like, I think that's not how people act. Just because like you're a face, you have to get along type of thing. I think Vince always had that in his mind. That's why that happened type of thing. So.
Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't make people interested that just because you're a heel, you have to get along type of thing. Just because you're a face, you have to get along. Like, I'm trying to, like, a big example of that was, I know they ended up turning heel, but the Elite, you know, when they were all baby faces right before the, you know, Kenny and the Bucks go heel, they weren't getting along type of thing. So, I mean, Jon Moxley when he went to AEW didn't get along with anybody. So, I mean, Kevin Owens and Sammy up until they teamed up recently, even though Sammy was a heel most of that time, when Sammy was a face and KO was a face, they didn't get along. So, you know,
they most definitely did not.
But yeah. So yeah, then we had Enzo comes out here. He talks about he does have to get the fans to turn on him eventually, which works because everyone remembers Neville was their boy, and they start chanting for Neville. And Enzo says, "I sent his ass home." Like, he kind of sweeps that under the rug. And he talks about how he was doing like an autograph signing or something, and he ran into a little kid who was the same size as Kalisto, which is weird because I think him and Kalisto were around the same height, so it didn't really make sense that he would say that. But you know, it's Enzo. He's Enzo. And he talked about how he's confused that he has to face Enzo Amore, Kalisto for the Cruiserweight Championship at Survivor Series, even though he's already beaten Kalisto. And he said that it doesn't matter because he's going to beat Kalisto and retain his belt. That's essentially what the promo is, but he just talks forever here. Like, fans, I think, turn on this segment hard. Like, they just boo it. Corey Graves kind of breaks character here and, like, says, okay, when is this segment going to end type of thing? Because at the time, also, Corey Graves did not like Enzo either. Do you remember Corey Graves had a show on the network where he would interview people? Was this right after? Do you remember there's an interview he does with Enzo where, like, it gets really sour really quick type of thing? Like, I think it was in character,
Oh, yeah.
but I think you could definitely tell Corey Graves and Enzo Amore, I don't think ever got along, like, ever type of thing. Like,
No.
But then Kalisto comes out, and he just sits in a chair, and Enzo says, just sit there type of thing. He's trying to talk all tough and all that type of stuff. And whose music hit? None other than Pete Dunne's. Pete Dunne, by the way, this was basically his rookie year in WWE. He had been in the United Kingdom Championship tournament, and then he had that classic match with Tyler Bate for the belt at NXT TakeOver Chicago where he won it, and he was pretty much red hot at this time type of thing. They were starting to build up the NXT UK brand. There was no brand yet, but anytime NXT or anything like that went to the UK, they always made it a habit to showcase the UK division. And yeah, this was Pete Dunne's like big debut on Raw type of thing, which you forget about because it was years ago, and by the time he showed up again on the main roster, pretty much he had been like well evolved as a character and everything like that. But it's weird how it happens, if you remember, because his music hits. It's not Pete Dunne that comes out at first. It's Kurt Angle. And he says, tonight we're going to have a match where it's going to be the Cruiserweight Champion versus the UK Champion. And he introduces Pete Dunne, which is also mentioned, too. It's not like his music stopped or anything like that. Like, Pete Dunne's music keeps playing as Kurt Angle's making this announcement. He introduces him. His music is still going, and Pete Dunne doesn't come out for, like, a good couple of minutes. Like, I feel like we would definitely call this out at the time. Like, how it was so weird how they did this. Like, because typically they would have just, like, Kurt Angle's music would have played, and then Pete Dunne would have come out, like, afterwards type of thing. Like, it was so weird how they did this. Before we break down the match, what did you think of Enzo's promo and how they introduced Pete Dunne? Because it's fucking strange.
It's really weird. Just very, very weird.
What do you think of Enzo's promo? I feel like I know what you're going to say about that.
Crappy.
There you go. We have the match. Pete Dunne basically wrecks Enzo in this match. He destroys him. He hits an X-Blast onto the apron. He stomps on his hand and breaks his fingers and stuff. And then Endo gets some offense in. He tries to cheat by rolling him up and using the ropes, but Kalisto points it out because he was still out there. And then Endo gets pissed about this, and then Pete Dunne hits a drop kick, just wrecking him. And then he hits the bitter end on Enzo for the win. And Pete Dunne beats Enzo. He essentially squashes him here. And I loved it. I'm giving this match like 3.25 stars just because Enzo got squashed. What did you think? I liked this.
Fantastic.
What are you giving it?
Enzo should have been fucking squashed.
Yeah. Would you give it as a star rating before I say what I was about to say?
5.
Oh, just because Enzo got squashed?
Yeah.
And yeah, Pete Dunne wins. He got a great reaction here because he was in his hometown, and it was probably the best debut Pete Dunne could have had, like, on the main roster and everything like that. We've done a career retrospective before on Pete Dunne. You can watch NXT TakeOver, Stand and Deliver. We do have to say something new about Enzo because, actually, no, we don't. I will say just in case. I think we have done a career retrospective on Enzo, but the new thing that's happened since we last did one is I find it funny because we will say behind the scenes, James has told us like Enzo's really good now and all that type of stuff. Like the week he was saying it, What happened the week James was saying all this stuff? What was a big thing that happened that week, if you remember,
Got released.
from MLW? So,
He was done. Kaput.
do we know what?
Finito.
Did we ever find out why or no?
I don't know.
But this led to the segment where Enzo called out the NXT UK division to be on an episode of 205 Live, because that was going to be because if you remember, they taped 205 with SmackDown, and that was also going to be in the UK. And I don't know, because I know you didn't watch 205 Live, I don't know if you remember, that episode of 205 Live was not very well received type of thing. Like, it was, like, really bad. So, there you go. But good debut for Pete Dunne, I thought. Then we had a ad for Total Divas. And it had just come back, and they added Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss to the cast. This was kind of like the last real big run that Total Divas had, if you remember, because I'm pretty sure it gets canceled. Is it after this season, or did it go a little bit longer? Because I remember,
I have no idea.
so I remember that it gets canceled like during the pandemic, but I don't know if it went on a little bit longer type of thing. So, I never really watched much Total Divas. I know your mom did, but did you specifically watch it much or no?
Yeah, I watched a lot of it.
There you go. Did you watch like this season when Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss were brought on, or how did you kind of stop watching by this point?
I honestly don't remember.
Then it shows a hype package for the WWE Universal Championship versus WWE Championship between Brock Lesnar and Jinder Mahal. Basically just kind of recapping everything they said. Pretty good hype package. It's really funny that they try to hype this up like it's a big match when everybody knew that it wasn't a big match type of thing. And I'm gonna come up with a conspiracy theory here. I think we have Paul Heyman to thank for the fact that Jinder lost the belt, because if you remember, Paul Heyman buries him on Raw like right before that happens. Like, I truly think had Paul Heyman's promo not happened, they were definitely gonna go full in on Jinder versus Brock. I think if weirdly enough, we have Paul Heyman to thank that Jinder lost the belt when he did. I think Jinder, he might have made it honestly to WrestleMania with the belt with the way they were going. But yeah, what did you think of this? Do you think we have Paul Heyman to thank, or do you think they were going to take the title off him anyways?
I think I had Paul Heyman to thank, but I really think they were going to take the title off him anyway.
But yeah, it's really funny because what happens? They start advertising stuff for next week's Raw. They hype Brock Lesnar's appearance. What's the thing they advertise next? It's that Jinder's going to have to defend the title against AJ Styles. So this video package was meaningless because they just take the title off him the next night anyways. So before I talk about that, what did you think of this hype promo here between Jinder Mahal and Brock Lesnar?
Didn't mean shit.
This is actually like a good way though that it didn't mean shit type of thing. It's not like a bad thing. So then we have an Alexa Bliss interview that also doesn't mean shit by the next week. Alexa Bliss talks about Natalya. She mentions how Natalya, had mentioned to Alexa Bliss that she ran away from her and ran to Raw. I always hate it when they say that doing like this stuff, because except when Dominic Mysterio did it to Ray, because that was funny. When they mentioned, like, oh, you ran away from me, like, right when I got hot and all that type of stuff. It's like, that's not how a draft works. I feel like sometimes they forget how a draft works. Like, it's not like they ran away. They got drafted to that plan. They have to go to that plan.
They ran the fuck away.
Again, the only time I think it worked was when Dominic said it to Ray, because that was fucking awesome. I know you loved it, too, because, like, Ray was talking down Dom, and you love it. You just love it when Dominic Mysterio looks like a fucking fool type of thing. So I know you're like... I know.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. But Alexa Bliss mentioned that she didn't run away from anybody. She talks about how when she was on SmackDown, Natty never won a title because she was always the champion. And then she talks about how she's a two-time SmackDown Women's Champion. I always forget she was a two-time SmackDown Women's Champion because I forgot there was that moment she lost the belt, just won it back anyways. Because I don't even know.
For reasons.
Yeah, and then she talked about she's a two-time Raw Women's Champion because, as you remember, she loses the belt to Sasha and then just wins it back anyways because Sasha could never retain a title at that time. And then She asked Charlie what's 2 plus 2 equal. Charlie says 4, and Alexa says no 1 because I'm a one-time greatness. And yeah, then the promo kind of starts not to make much sense because it's just really weird.
Not how counting works.
Huh?
Not how counting works.
Yeah, but I like this
The
promo.
blonde really can't really just that speaks for itself.
I like this promo here by Alexa Bliss, though. Even though the scripting was really bad, I thought she made it work for what it was. Again, this promo doesn't mean shit the next week, because Natty just goes on to lose a SmackDown Women's title anyways to Charlotte Flair, so it is what it is. But what did you think of this?
It was decent.
Now, would you say this, because we never talked about this was probably Alexa's best run in the company, was probably that SmackDown, like, end of the year type of run, up until probably maybe SummerSlam 2018, maybe Hell in a Cell, because you know, then she kind of was injured a lot and all that type of stuff. Would you say this is Alexa's best run in the company?
Yeah, she was booked pretty strongly.
Yeah, because then afterwards it kind of gets bad, because then we've done career retrospective, but because then afterwards, like, she enters the tag division, which isn't bad, but it's not her best run, and then let's just say Lily happens, and then we don't need to say anything more that comes of that. So
Come on, it's the best run she ever had.
then we have the main event. It's Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against The Bar. I don't think they were called The Bar at this time. I think they just said it was just that was like their catchphrase. When did they officially become known as The Bar? Because they just come out as Sheamus and Cesaro here. When did they officially become?
It was. I don't think it was long after this.
Okay.
At least because I just remember them always be the Bar, but I think it was. It might have been like a few weeks after this.
Yeah. So we mentioned this before on the episode of Raw where the Shield reunited. There's a reason I said there was an attempt to reunite the Shield, because unfortunately, it didn't really work because Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt, and JoJo. Even though JoJo's a ring announcer here, but I'm pretty sure there was a period of time where she was off. She was out of commission. All got sick. They all got like the mumps, if you remember. And Roman Reigns, did Roman Reigns actually get the mumps, or was it one of those things? Because now we know the backstory behind Roman Reigns. Was it one of those things where if he got the mumps, like, he would be like more prone to get it because of his leukemia and all that type of stuff? Like, what kind of happened with that? Because did he actually get it, or was it one of those things where he had to be off TV of a fear of a chance? Because now we know about his leukemia now. So, what exactly?
I don't think. I think he got it.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was one of those things you had to be off a TV type of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Back then we didn't know about his leukemia diagnosis type of thing. So. So they had to. Basically, it was just Ambrose and Rollins as a team with the Shield gimmick. They did. Kurt Angle was a one-off, and then they did, was this right after Because I know Triple H does it as like a house show.
Triple H, Samoa Joe do it at house shows.
So, yeah. So, and then we'll just talk about this now. Like then because Reigns comes back the next week, but by the time he's back, Ambrose goes out due to injury. So basically, this Shield reunion is kind of a failure, not necessarily because of WWE, just because of shit not happening at the worst possible time, type of thing. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I assume the Shield reunion wasn't always going to be long, anyways, because the plan was always for Roman Reigns to still make it to WrestleMania. But I assumed it probably would have ended after the Rumble or something like that. That's probably when it would have ended.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Obviously these two teams have been going back and forth for a while. They feuded for the titles going into SummerSlam, where Ambrose and Rollins won them, and then they retained them at No Mercy in that infamous match where Cesaro's teeth got broken. And then that's pretty much it kind of led to this rematch, and we kind of talked about how that was set up. This was kind of the last match. These two teams, by the way, were like putting on like match of the year like contenders right here.
Easily.
I feel like too. I liked the Usos versus New Day feud. I just think I still like it. It's still this might be an unpopular opinion. I liked this storyline at the time more than the Usos and the New Day feud, because I think I've talked about this before. There was actually a storyline here. Like the Usos and New Day feud wasn't bad, but they were just having matches. There's really no like storyline. They just kept having rematches just because it was at that time when they had to have a rematch for the title belts. I like this because it was a storyline about Ambrose and Rollins coming together. Like I feel like this. I feel like a lot of people kind of have like. I feel because the matches were so good, a lot of people like that feud. But I would say this was like the actual best tag team feud like in WWE. Well, actually no, it was probably like the DIY Authors of Pain feud because that was going on at this time too. But what do you? I'm not gonna get the most impartial answer here, but do you agree? Do you think the Usos and New Day feud was better? Or did you like this feud more? Because I like this storyline more.
I was partial to the Shield, but like in terms of being invested, fuck. New Day Usos had me, but yeah, I don't know. I can't. I love them. I love both of them equally.
Well, what if I like held a gun to your head and like forced you to pick one type of thing? Like you had to come up with an answer and like.
Probably the Bar versus the Shield, just because of like it had a little bit more story driven. But both of those were excellent feuds, though.
Yeah, they were. I feel like if the New Day and Usos, if they didn't do the match so often, it'd probably be better. But I feel like they were starting to do the match like way too. Like if you remember, yeah,
it was like in terms of stables and tag teams, that was it.
Yeah,
then
on SmackDown, anyways.
Shield, and then you had Miz, the Miz's group, and then
I was gonna say the Hardys, but they didn't have the Hardys anymore because Jeff went out due to his injury at this time. So
yeah, Matt was kind of irrelevant at this point.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have as a lot. I feel like too because they would. The matches were more fresher too. Like yeah, they added steps to like the New Day and Usos match, but I feel like too like they didn't do the same matches and stuff. There was always something different in the New Day. Huh?
Feud fatigue in a way.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyhow, maybe it's ruined too because we got told that if we didn't like that 5-star Hell in a Cell match, too, that we just didn't like wrestling. So we're like, and you know how we feel about that, Chris. You don't tell us that. You don't question a wrestling fan. Now, Billy Corgan has seen what happens when that happens. So, but anyhow, earlier in the show, I forgot to write it down. There was an interview segment with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins where they get interviewed by Renee Young. This is the only interview that Renee Young does. Even though it had been talked about before, but it was really funny that, Renee Young would always do Dean Ambrose's interviews. I think that always happened because he knew they were a thing in real life. I know it was very well known at this time because, Dean had been on Total Divas by this point.
Yeah.
And, but they still weren't really playing up to it all that much. So.
They never mentioned it on TV until like years later.
Yeah,
it wasn't even mentioned right because it was sort of like a year or so later because I think it was announced like they showed pictures on I think TV after they had gotten married.
But this was they cut an interview where they talk about how they've have beaten all of the tag teams that's come their way, how they are a dominant force, and they talk about how they're sick and tired of having to put away the ball. Maybe that's why I like this feud, Boo, because at least they reference the fact that they've kept having to deal with this type of stuff. Like, that's the thing with the New Day and the Usos. They never reference the fact that they kept having to do this. I don't mind if you do the same stuff, just talk about it. Like, for example, like, last week when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, this was the week Kevin Owens got injured, where they mentioned they basically did do the same opening segment. At least they talked about it. It makes it more authentic when you talk about it, type of thing. It's still not great to do the same thing all the time, but I like it when it's at least reference that they do the same thing all the times. But they talk about how they're gonna put them down for good. They mentioned that that the top tag team in all of Raw at the moment, and they're gonna prove that to the Usos at Survivor Series because they were still hyping up that match, which we'll talk about. This is a spoiler, but you should have seen the show by now because it's like over 5 years old. Actually, I think it is. Well, no, it's probably 6 years old at this point. 5.5 years old. How weird does it hear me? Does it? How weird does it feel to hear me say that? Because this show's 5.5 years old. Like,
That's it's
'cause
old.
yeah, but anyhow, I mean that's the last time we did like a big show in person type of thing. So, anyhow, yeah, Dean and Seth mentioned that they're the tag team on Raw, and they cut a promo on the Usos. Ambrose is cutting great promos. There's this funny line here where Seth Rollins is asking Renee Young like about how she feels about the bar and stuff, and she says, "I'm impartial," which is really hilarious. I think it was still funny, but it would have been more funny if they had Dean Ambrose ask the question, just because they're married in real life. So it would have been
That would have been hilarious.
yeah. And then they put like the shield fist in there, and they just leave. And I like it because when they leave, when Renee Young goes to do it, and like no one's there, so she's just kind of doing it just to be cool. It's like Renee, they totally would have let you do it. Like that's your husband right there, type of
A little
thing.
late there.
Yeah. So, what do you think of that backstage interview? I thought it was hilarious. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was good. It was really, really good. I liked it.
I was kind of watching the segment, kind of interested too, to see like if there was gonna be like a moment where, like if you know, because Dean was also, if you remember, this is kind of, even though it's not yet, but Dean was, I was wondering if Dean, because Dean still had passion here, like you could tell that he still liked being in WWE type of thing, like he wasn't done with the company yet at this time. Type
No.
of thing. So, I think that's kind of cool. It's just always is weird. It seemed like they only knew how to book this guy when he was in the Shield. Any other time, it's like they forgot how to book this guy. Like, just do what you were doing in the Shield and it's fine, type of thing. You could kind of see his hair is getting a little shorter at this time. He doesn't have the long hair that he had, type of thing. He looked a little bit more John Moxley here than he did Dean Ambrose, I would say, type of thing. But yeah, we had the tag title match, and this tag title match fucking rules. It's probably the best match of the whole show, which I always think is a good thing. You always want to put the best match of the show. Ambrose and Rollins start off on fire. They take out the Ball. The Ball's entrance, this is when the Ball was really starting to become like a big tag team. Because if you remember, they were originally a thrown together tag team. And I think it was probably when they turned heel at Payback against the Hardys, when they started to like really connect as a tag team.
Yeah.
They were starting to connect, but that was like the moments where they became a really big tag team type of thing. Like, I hate the fact that they broke them up. I feel like they should have never broken up type of thing. I know Sheamus went out due to an injury later on, but I feel like once he came back, they should have just gone right back into that tag team. Yeah, they do this cool thing where Dean Ambrose picks up Seth Rollins like in a bear hug position. Not Seth Rollins. Cesaro in a bear hug position, and Rollins does like a slim blade type of double team move, which was cool. They both hit dives on the outside, and then eventually, during the break, Cesaro hits an uppercut in the corner, and Dean gets put in a tree of woe position, and they just beat him up. They hit like an elbow drop while he's in the tree of woe position, and the Ball just dominate Dean Ambrose for a long ass time. It's really long, but good stuff. They do the typical thing where like Dean tries to get the tag, but Rollins is taken out on the floor, so he can't quite make the tag type of thing. I thought that was cool stuff. Eventually, Ambrose hits a neck breaker, and Rollins gets the hot tag. And they did come out to the Shield entrance. I didn't mention that. Like, they were in the Shield attire and everything like that, which, it's even though like Rollins had been involved in stuff, it's always weird to see Rollins nowadays, especially nowadays with the gimmick he has now, like in Shield mode type of thing. That's cool. And Rollins is on fire. He hits a really good rolling face buster on Sheamus, and he gets a nice near fall right there. He hits a super kick, a suicide dive on the outside, and the match just starts to really go ham. Sheamus and Cesaro hit like a doomsday device where Sheamus does I think it's Sheamus that goes to do a powerbomb, and Cesaro does like an uppercut from the middle turnbuckle. I think that's on the Rollins, and he gets a really good near fall. And then I think we get the best near fall of the whole match where Ambrose hits Sturdy Deeds on Sheamus, and Rollins hits the frog splash. And just at like the nick of time, like Cesaro breaks up the pinfall, like in the nick of time. It was really awesome. then everybody's down at this point, and the New Day's theme song hits, and I like what happens here. Like the match just stops. Everyone's kind of. I did like too. At least they would get into their feet. I should mention that. Like it's not like they were just down and then they just got to their feet. Like they would just get into their feet, and then the New Day's music hits, and everyone's just kind of on high alert. Like even the ref type of thing. Like the match just stops, and I like what the camera work did here. Like they didn't show like the New Day like right away. It was like they kind of like, because WWE does this anyways, where they done a bunch of camera cuts, especially during this time. It made sense to do it here. Like you didn't know where the New Day was gonna come from, type of thing. They were like looking all around. The crowd knew where they were obviously first. Like the crowd's like pointing them out in the fans, which was funny. And the New Day come out to the crowd, and they basically talk shit to everybody. They talk about how the New Day's on Raw, and I think it's hilarious. I think it's Xavier that says this, where he mentions that you guys had to sit through a boring 3-hour show, and now we're here at the best part of the show. He just buried Raw right there. And they talk shit, and it's what's really awesome. I didn't notice this at the time. Kofi Kingston went back to his Jamaican accent pretty much, which I thought was hilarious. Because they were mentioning they were asked what did Raw do when SmackDown invaded, and they say nothing. It was really hilarious. It was awesome, and they cut to the back while the New Day's cutting their promo. Kurt Angle's backstage with Beauty and the Man Beast, Heath Slater, and Rhino, and Braun Strowman's backstage, and basically the entire Raw locker room just starts emptying. They try to look, and I love what Kurt Angle says. He says, "Cold blue, cold blue." I thought that was awesome. If you notice too, Matt Hardy's backstage, and this is when he's transitioning into the woken Matt Hardy gimmick. I don't think he had fully transitioned yet, but he was definitely starting to go in that direction. And the entire Raw locker room just goes backstage in the parking lot and tries to find them there, but the SmackDown team's nowhere to be found. New Day still talking shit to Raw. They were just in the crowd, and the entire Raw locker room empties, and they're just looking for SmackDown all over the place. And eventually, Sheamus, after the kind of things cool off and everything like that, eventually the New Day just leave, essentially just be they're just bye-bye, see you later. And during this commotion, Sheamus hits a bro kick on Dean Ambrose, covers him, and the Bar become the new Raw Tag Team Champions. Do you remember how sudden this is too? That we don't even know the match is still going on at this point.
Yeah.
We thought there was going to be no finish, and Sheamus just hits the bro kick, and it's just over type of thing. And Kurt Angle's not happy about this, and I actually kind of like this finish a lot. I'm gonna give the match a rating. I give it 4.25 stars. The action's really good, but it really does pick up once the New Day get involved. I kind of like that the action just stopped. The ref didn't do a count out or anything like that, because it made sense. If you have a brand or something invaded, I feel like the brand that's being invaded would just stop everything they're doing. And I like how chaotic it was towards the end, and I liked how it got over the balls over big as heels. The fact that they basically were selfish instead of staying there to look for SmackDown. Sheamus just basically was selfish and took the title win over protecting Raw, and they just kind of take off. And I don't think we talked about this. In a way, SmackDown threw a monkey wrench into Raw's team, because Kurt Angle had all these teams made out, thinking, because they did a good job building throughout the show that Kurt Angle was trying to get the best talent possible. And the Usos, were training and everything like that for this team. Kurt Angle was setting all his teams. If you think about it, this was a way for SmackDown to play mind games first, saying that they could have shown up here, and everyone's all worried. They actually threw a monkey wrench by because now Kurt has to have Sheamus and Cesaro defend Raw, who he doesn't even like, and SmackDown through there. And if you remember, they don't even win at Survivor Series, so that made all the sense in the world. And if you remember, I think the New Day did this to not just help SmackDown, but to help the Usos, because I'm pretty sure it didn't. Even though they were feuded, wasn't this right after the Usos and the New Day buried the hatchet on SmackDown? So
yeah, a friendly at this point.
So it made all the sense in the world to kind of do this. I give it think about some more. I'm gonna give this like 4.5 stars. I feel like this was a great way to end the show, and a great way to shake up the teams at Survivor Series. I feel like this actually made sense to do it this way because now it became the Bar versus the Usos, and it made sense because SmackDown was the one that was like throwing the monkey wrench type of thing, where they basically changed his Raw team. And think about what we got out of this. We because of this finish right here, we got the New Day versus the Shield at Survivor Series, which it set up that match I thought really well type of thing. So overall, what did you think of the match, the finish, and how it set up everything and all that type of stuff?
I liked the match. At the time, I was pissed the Shield lost. I was really, 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 really mad.
Yeah, you were.
I was heated. But yeah, like it's a good match. The finish made sense because then the actual Shield reunited for a match against the New Day at Survivor Series, which that match was epic. It was awesome. And we got the Bar versus the Usos at Survivor Series, and that match was awesome also, too.
Yeah, it was.
So it's everything kind of made sense. We got some really awesome matches out of it.
Yeah. And again, I think it was just like it added a new element to the Bar versus like Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins like feud type of thing too that it didn't have before type of thing. So, but yeah, that's the end of this episode of Raw. Weirdly enough, I think this is a good, solid show here. I think it does a really good job of setting up the storyline where Kurt Angle's trying to come up with his best players at Survivor Series, and then at the end it kind of crumbles with the Shield losing the tag titles. It sets up this, act of doom of SmackDown showing up, and I like that they show up at the end of the show. And Pete Dunne had a really good debut and destroyed Enzo. I'm always going to love that. And then Samoa Joe and Finn Balor had a really good match. Asuka had a good debut. And the only real bad thing on this show, honestly, is the Elias, Jason Jordan, Katana and a pole match, to be fair. However, I'm still going to give this, I'm just going to give this a solid B. I don't think it's quite a great show. I feel like, too, there's not a lot of matches in the beginning. The wrestling part of the show doesn't take shape until then, and, I didn't like Miz being a babyface in the beginning just to be like a heel, and Billy Ray was a bit confusing. So I'm gonna give this show a good solid B. I feel like it was just really solid. What did you think?
I thought I give it also a B. Just a solid show. Pete Dunne looked great and dominant in his debut in his home country. Everything kind of worked. Everything played off well storyline wise. But yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, really good, solid stuff. And that's pretty much it, guys, for this video. So we have some retros coming. Well, first, usually you're supposed to plug your stuff first. Is there anything you want to plug or promote?
I don't have anything.
There you go. This time, but we have some stuff coming up. AEW Spark is going to be recorded. I think that's going to be recorded Monday, and that will be out Tuesday is the plan right now. Then we have we're doing a big retro. We're going to do. I don't know when it's going to be recorded, but at some point before All In, we're going to do Wrestle Kingdom 12, because that's basically the show that sets up All In. So the first All In, anyways. So without that, we don't even have AEW. So Wrestle Kingdom 12 is the retro. That's why that in a way ties into All In. So we'll be doing Wrestle Kingdom 12, which is going to be a hell of a retro to do. First time ever New Japan's joining the retro fold, so that's awesome. And then at some point, James and I are going to do SummerSlam 05 retro, because for some reason he still wants to do that, but it's James. He likes to, James, he likes to do retros after shows have already happened. And it's his pick, so I'm not going to, deny him that. It's actually a mutual pick, but whatever. And then Then we're going to do ECW Heatwave 1998. Zero wants to do that one. That's the one we've had in the works for a while. And I think now is the more appropriate time to do it since NXT is doing Heatwave, August 22nd. So, it makes sense to do Heatwave 98 as a retro. And then other things, obviously WWE Aftershock, we're probably going to record that. I'm available anytime after Friday, obviously, to do that, just because that's when all the WWE shows happen. So I would prefer to could you record that Saturday?
Yeah.
I could do it anytime too, just because I'll be
Okay.
I'll be all by myself, all by my lonesome. So anytime you want to do that, if you want to do it in the morning, that's fine. Let's be real, I'm most likely going to be producing it probably. So there you go. And then, I can't think of anything big like on the wrestling channel. With this time that I'm going to have, I'm going to see if James and I could squeeze in like a fantasy booking episode. And then, if there's any other like wrestling videos I can fit in. We are going to try to fit in like a retro, since Edge is having his, big celebration. On SmackDown. It's not this week, but next week. I originally, so Chris, you might have to be on the board. It's still going to be my pick. We're going to do the SmackDown where Edge cashed in the Money in the Bank on The Undertaker. Just because, that's a significant retro. And we wouldn't be able to get it in time before, because John comes up, I think, after that SmackDown. So it really makes sense to do it. We're going to try to get John. I also would like John to pick his retro if we're doing it. So John will try to do a retro pick since he hasn't done one in a while. And then, just enjoy all these retros you're going to get and all this stuff. We're going to try to do a wrestling rundown after Payback, covering all the big shows that's been going on. The G1 would have wrapped up. Well, it would have been long wrapped up, but everything like wrestling related we'll cover. And then, just going to be a busy time for the channel the next few weeks. And then, Owen the Talking in the channel will be busy. Tomorrow, my cousin and I are going to do Owen and AJ Talks where we cover Ben 10 and Danny Phantom. It might just be one of them just because of time. Might just be the Ben 10 video just because that's the more important one to get done. And then, we're going to try to do Red versus Blue. Not the whole season, not just season 1, but the Blood Gulch era. Since we're gonna try to see if we can get caught up on Red versus Blue, and something that's incoming relatively soon. It's actually soon. It's probably coming soon. And Chris will be joining in, and my cousin Chris and I will be doing Yellow Jackets reviews. I don't know when we're gonna do it at this point, just because with the strike now, like I was thinking it was gonna come back soon, but it's Yellow Jackets probably ain't coming back anytime soon. So I figured, though, it's better be best to get it done in January, though, just because that's the time the most available to do it, probably. So, you could have plugged that, Chris, by the way. You didn't plug that, I noticed. So, is there something you're not telling me, by the way? You're just going to back out the last minute?
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna wait till about 30 seconds before we go on to back into
it. You just decide, nah, I'm not doing this. I feel like, too, it's only going to be like 30 seconds. We're going to get on, and you'll just be like, oh, I'm leaving. Goodbye. You're just going to be like, done. See ya.
More than likely.
But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you, guys. And obviously, FTW Main Hub, I don't know what's going to be on tap for that channel, but just look out for stuff. And that's pretty much it, guys. And we will talk to you guys later. And since this is being recorded in the past, we will talk to you guys in the future.
We doing all the classics, you heard it then I grabbed it. Flow like Method Man, then run like I'm Rabbit. Soon as I hear the bass line, it be my FaceTime. Music's in my veins, so just in case I'm without my iPod or a media player, I'll check my